All right. All right. We're back. It's COMP305, and it's week 6, lesson 6, part 3. We're doing the broadcast and the recording at the same time. See how this works out this week.
There's nothing.
It's there.
And I thought that you guys would have seen everything. Right? Nothing's showing up out here, but how about over there? You guys can see stuff?
I can see.
Yay! Okay, good. I am recording, so anyways, doesn't matter. Either way, I'm recording my screen. This is why we do these things. Okay, so last we left off, let's get into the Unity stuff that we were doing. And again, I'm going to pull up that COMP305 2D platformer demo section 1, right? Let's bring that one up. Okay, so this is where we are last time. If I press play, then we kind of get in here. And again, if you notice, but one of the things that I had a challenge with last time was, well, a couple things. If I press the button too long, I slide a little bit too fast, right? So just like it's getting me to run a little bit quick, and especially on the way back. That's one. So I got to consider what we've done here, right? And again, the way we can check this out, I can add a little bit of friction. Again, remember that I had this collider, and I also have a rigid body 2D, right? So my rigid body 2D, it has a couple of things here. We have, you know, a bit of linear drag that I can add in if I want to slow myself down. I also have limited myself from a rotation perspective, so I don't flip over or anything else like that. The hero himself can't flip or you know, kind of change direction. So that's one thing I've done. My box collider 2D also does not have a physics material. And last time we tried to add a physics material, let me just go back to that. So if I go to materials and I look at player physics, remember he becomes really nervous, right? Because he bounces. Take a look. If I had the physics material in there, like the one I created, and if I just drop him down, then he has a bit of a bounce going on, but then he's all jittery. He's all jittery. And some of that is because of the way we do our gravity, right? So if I change my bounciness, if I go back, and if I change my bounciness to a little bit higher values, let's say go 0.5, right? Oops, not 0.05, 0.5 from a bounciness perspective. And look at friction for a second, okay? I want you to see this one, because friction also adds some, basically the ability for us to slow down a little quicker, right? So let me just add that on to the bounciness is 1.5. So it's a bit of a bounce. And if you notice, if I kind of zoom in on the guy, right? Let me zoom in on it. If you notice, he's jittery. He's jumping up and down. But what's really the thing that's moving? Is it him that's moving, or is it the platform that seems that's moving? It's almost looking like the whole platform, the whole world seems to be moving around with it. Now, for us, for our purposes, bouncing is really neat, but not necessary. Friction is really important, though. Let's take away bounciness. Let's cut this back to 0, right? And then start playing with the guy and see what happens to him now. And let me just zoom in here. So I'm going to go focus on the hero, go to my scene. Now, he doesn't seem to be doing any kind of bouncing at all. The good thing is, sorry, went back there. The good thing is if I start moving now, he kind of slows down a little bit faster. So he skids. He's still quite fast to accelerate. And I think we need to reduce his acceleration. One is increase his mass to 0.04. Again, these are just values we have to play with a little bit. Let me just try this out. So again, I'm just increasing his mass. And that might be okay because he kind of accelerates when he goes, right? So if you notice, he moves fast. I'm not sure that I'm happy with his motion though. Let me just make this a bit bigger so he doesn't run off the world for a second, okay? So just undo this. And I'm gonna go back to my scene and I'm gonna kind of zoom out and I'm gonna click this platform for a second. And we're just gonna change the size so that it's a little bigger. So I'm just gonna bake this up a little bit bigger than it was. Just so that he can't fall off. So he might go off the screen, but he won't fall off the world. Let's try this out. Again, this is just test parameters, right? So I'm running. Don't worry about me now. And then, did it fall? And then, you know, I'm kind of coming back. Oh no, he's gone. he gone, baby. He fell off the world anyway, right? All right, so go back, and then as I come back, he kind of runs. I'm not sure if his running, right, is in tune with his speed right now. Okay, so how do you figure that out? How do you figure if his running makes sense, right? And how do I change the controller speed? And this is just before I go into flipping him around and all that stuff, the flipping thing, right? So again, if I go back to his script, I can certainly look there. I can change the speed if I want to play with the speed values. Like right now, his speed is 50. I could change that a little bit lower. I can make it 40 or whatever. That's fine. I can play with those values to change his actual speed. But that's like speed and acceleration. We're adding force. We're pushing the character forward as we're moving him, right? So that kind of covers one thing, but not necessarily what we're looking for. Okay, so what do we do? How do we fix this? I'm just going to kind of collapse these things a little bit. So I'm going to take my project window here, just because I want to make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to just bring it on under here for a second, so we can have. I'm trying to get a little bit more space into my scene here, so we can see a little bit more. All I've done is collapse one window, and the good thing about Unity is it kind of allows me to collapse a window into the other one, which is kind of cool. It saves us a little bit of space. Okay, so what I want to do here now that he's moving, so again, I can see that he's moving backwards or forwards. I'm not so sure that he's moving fast. It's almost like his feet look like they're sliding, right? So how do I change that? So I'm going to go stop him from doing something, and I'm going to go into his player controller script. So I'm going to go into his player controller. Here's the player controller animator, right? Or animator controller. And if you notice his walk cycle, if I click his walk cycle there, his speed is 2. The speed here is 2. So I definitely can add a multiplier like I did. Like so his speed offset, I just added it 2 times the speed to get there, right? That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is actually to look at the player walk clip. So let's take a look at the clip. So I'm going to double click on the clip, which is his player walk. And one thing I can do is I can look at it inside the, I'm going to go to another window here. I'm going to populate another window called the animation window. Right, so here's my animation window. I'm just going to move this into the top here. Pull this to the side next to animator. And when I click on the player walk clip, right, or the actual player, the hero himself, you notice that up here where it says my hero sprite, you can see what the actual animation looks like, right? If you also notice that there are samples 12, here's my player idle script. Player idle script shows 12, right? So, and that's how many cycles he has, as an example. I can also look at player walk by pulling down that's the other one that's attached to my player, right? And here's my player walk. Also, my samples are 12. So that means what does samples mean, right? That's like cycles per second, if you will. You know, it kind of makes how many of these samples, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, comes to about here. In a second, as an example, it takes more than a second for me to play my entire walk animation, right? And if I multiply that by 2, it happens in every half a second. So 500 milliseconds take me to do my walk animation. But my samples, if you notice, I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 frames for my entire walk animation, right? And I'm running at 60 frames per second right now. That's my game, right? That means that he'll do his entire walk animation 4 times a second. He'll actually cycle through this 4 times a second if I was running at 60 frames per second. But I'm not. I'm running at 12, right? What if we increase the sample size from 12 to 30, right? So what's happening is this doesn't change my cycles. This is the sample size. So I can, if you notice, if I scroll down here, right, it changes. I mean, it just increases. I can kind of zoom in and out, right? So I've changed my sample size to 30, right? So, and I've reduced my, if I go back to my animator, I look at my player walk. Let's move this back down to 1 instead of 2, just to show you that. So I've changed it back to 1, right? Go back to my animation. So what effect does this have if I was to play this scene? And again, if I look at my player, my hero, right, and I want to play him out in the scene, let's go back to my scene, my game, and play him. And I'm going to start running, right? See, look, it almost looks like he's running at the same rate of speed as before. Right now, I'm not turning him yet, but I will. So here he is running, and then he's skidding, right? Bit of a skid there. If I want to change my skidding, so I want him to stop a lot faster, how do I affect that? I got to change his material. Let's do that for a second so he doesn't skid off the world. So here's his physics. His friction is 0.4. Let's move this to 0.8, so double the friction, and see what happens. But I can't do that in gameplay. I got to do that without debugging. So let's try that again. So 0.8. If I run him now, see how he's kind of being dragged? Take a look. It's almost like he's being dragged by the friction. That might be a little bit too much. Let's go 0.6. And again, these values we play with a little bit to get realistic motion with within our game. So let's try this again. It's almost a little better, isn't it? So it's kind of a little better. You know, he kind of starts running, and then he's starting to move. But even 0.6 is a little bit oppressive. So maybe even just one more point higher, 0.5 might be better. Again, all I'm doing is limiting his motion so he doesn't start moving right away. There's a bit of resistance based on his mass. Okay, that's pretty good. If I want him to move faster, obviously I could drop that value. I could also drop his mass. I could do a lot of stuff. This is okay for me right now. But one thing that bugs me, okay, so I'm starting to run, and it looks like he's okay now. It looks like the walk cycle is almost as fast as his movement. I want to kind of match it so his legs look like they're propelling him, like they do something. Otherwise, it looks like he's like skidding, right? You know, it still almost looks like that, right? Like watch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? He's like, looks like he's moving around. So it's not bad. It's okay animation, right? As an example, but not perfect either. We're going to hone that up a little bit. So all I've done, just to recap here, is I've gone to my player physics, and I've created a new material called player physics, and it's a physics material as opposed to a regular material like a texture. And I've changed my friction to 0.5. I've taken the bounciness away because it makes him jitter within our current game, right? And when he runs, he's slowed down a little bit by the friction. The more friction I add, the slower he runs. He's getting resistance, almost like wind resistance or the resistance from him moving in general. Okay, so that's my scene. And what I did with the animation, I've increased the samples for, he's got 15 frames. I've increased the samples to 30. So it's double the amount of samples that I'm hitting in this almost like a frame rate, internal frame rate for this thing. I can also add different properties. Take a look what I could do. In here, I'm targeting the hero sprite. I could add in there different properties for, as an example, my player controller. I can look at these things and modify my property based on what my animation is doing. More of an advanced look on what to do. Okay, so just wanted to show you this one so you see it. And again, if I want to play the animation, you can see how many samples he's going through. Look, there it is. So it's 15 samples, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how fast the animation is going, right? And it's playing it there. So I can actually play the scene and see how fast it cycles through. I can also look, this is the actual dope sheet. This is what this is called in animation terms. This is a dope sheet. I can also look at the curves, right? So if I play this thing out, you can see that if there's a curve for this animation, which in this particular case there's not, I can actually look at the curve. The curve is, it's kind of a linear based animation because it goes frame by frame. So there's nothing anywhere here that would show us anything right now. So dope sheet is one we want to see. And again, I'm saying entire animation run, his walk cycle, from the beginning, from 0.0 seconds, all the way to 0.15. All right? And again, it's only because I've changed my samples. Let's lower this to see the effect, just one more time. So instead of 30 samples, let's change it to 3. Okay? And let's see what happens here with 3 samples and see what kind of animation I get now, what kind of motion he gets with this, right? See what's happening there? It's almost like I can affect the internal frame rate of the character's run, right? as opposed to 2 or whatever. I could do that too. I could also multiply it by 2 in the Animator Controller if I don't have control. Sometimes you can't do this because we don't have access to this. But this sample rate is like almost like my internal frame rate for my run cycle, my walk cycle, if you will. Let me take this back to 30. And so double the amount of frames being shown here in the same amount of time. All right, this way actually was just we went to 10 times. So a little bit about animation, just so you understand. Actually, again, if you know Flash animation and dope sheets in Flash, it's very similar. If you actually done Flash type animation, we get a bunch of keyframes, and all we're doing here, I mean, I'm making a comparison. I'm not saying that Flash is the same as this, but you could certainly see the comparison here. Again, if you notice, I have access to both clips. I have the player idle clip and the player walk clip. I think my player idle clip is pretty good. I think, you know, for the amount of cycles he has 12 samples, right? And from what I remember, there's like 24, so he's going half as fast. And if I try this out, if I go back to the game itself and I hover in on him, right? So let's look at the hero, and I use like, you know, kind of frame view. You see he's like actually like, you know, it's a pretty good cycle, right? It's not too fast. If I was to speed this up, it might be like too fast, like almost like he's bobbing his head too much, right? So I think this is a pretty good frame rate. Okay, let's add some more features to there, because right now all he can do is run forward. When he runs the other way, he runs backwards, which is not really what we want. So how do we affect that? I mean, one way we have to do is we have to kind of create a way of him, for us knowing his direction, right? And if I'm going back with what we learned from the tutorial, we have to kind of create a facing for the player, a default facing, if you will. Let's go back to the game. And I'm going to go back to his script. So I'm going to look at the player script, player controller script. Just going to bring that up for a second. And here in MonoDevelop, we can see that when it comes up, come on, MonoDevelop. I'm doing a lot, right? I'm kind of recording and broadcasting all at once and doing Unity. It's massive. Okay, so let's take a look here what we've got going on. Where we've got a rigid body 2D and all this other stuff. But one thing we need to know is just some way of knowing the direction the player is facing, almost like a default direction. So we placed a float here, and it's private. I also want to know, I want to put a private Boolean variable that we're going to call for now is facing right. Right, is facing right. We're going to set that by default to true. So we're going to say, well, you know what? By default, my player is facing right. Okay, that's what this is. Right now, it's just a flag. Remember, whenever we create a Boolean, all it can be is true or false. So right now, we've got think about this as a switch. The switch is on, right? The player is currently facing right. When he's not facing right, the switch would be off, right? He's facing left. That's what it would mean, right? Now you could certainly have another flag, you know, to show that the player is facing left, but there's no need, right? Because it's kind of redundant. Okay, so what we want to say is let's go back to our code here. Let's review what we did last day, right? We got input from the getAxis method, right? We looked at the horizontal method, which gives us a value between -1 and 1. That's what this method does, right? Now we're moving, and now we can select if we're going to change animation states by setting my property that we did it in the Animator Controller to either 1 or 0. 1 would be he's running or walking. 0 would be he's idle right now. Those are the two states we have. We're going to add some other states in a second, right? Or one other state, jumping. But the one thing we know is when he's moving to the right, right? If he's moving to the right, and if we're affecting his speed, we might as well say that, well, this dot underscore is facing right, right, is equal to true. So if he's moving to the right, well, you know what? Pretty sure that he's facing right. And if it's true that he's facing right when he's going to the right, then obviously this would be false. So I'm going to copy this. And underneath this, I would say, well, this facing right is equal to false because he's facing left right now, right, when he's going to the left. So I think I need that facing value for a second. And again, this is a global, or this is a class instance variable and we can access from the class, right? Okay, so I've got that, but I want to be able to flip them somehow, right? I mean, we kind of did this before, but I want to show it to you again in a different way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a public flip, or sorry, a private flip method. Let's try this out. So we're going to go down here, and I'm going to create a private method called with return void, and it's called flip. This is again right from the video, right? We're going to call this private methods, right? There we go, private methods. And in this method, I want to check if he's facing right. If he's facing right, then I want to transform him. So he was facing right already, and now I'm going to flip him, which means I got to transform him. I got to flip him around the other side, right? If he's not facing right, I want to flip him back the other way, right? So this is how you would do this. And again, it's kind of a neat way of doing it. We're going to flip him across. We're going to transform him across, you know, an axis. And the axis that we're going to flip him across is the x-axis, right? Because the x-axis runs horizontally, right? So we're going to flip him across the horizontal when he's moving in the wrong direction or the other direction. So we're going to say if this dot underscore is facing right, right? If it's true, he's facing right. And what we want to do is flip him the other way, right? Or else we're going to do it the other way around. So that's kind of our setup for this thing. So in here, and when we're facing right, I'm going to bring this up in a second, you'll see. I want to kind of say something like this. This dot underscore, remember, this is where our transform comes into play. This dot underscore transform, remember we created a transform shortcut to GameObject.getComponentTransform in the last video that we made. I want to say, well, this transform, right, we want to set the local scale, our local scale, right, is equal to a new vector 3, or vector 3, that's right. You can actually make it a vector 2 too, but if I go vector 3, let's try vector 3. And the vector 3, we're going to have x, y, and z's. We're going to say, well, we're not going to flip him around his, it's kind of, we're going to flip him back around his regular thing. When he's facing right, we're going to flip him the other way. All this does is it tells us what the local scale is. So if I'm facing right, then everything is back to normal. That's all this is saying, okay? So if I'm facing right, it's 1 to 1. Okay, my local scale, right? Instead of it being like I can make it 2, I can make it 3. If I make it 3, he just grows bigger. And I'll try that out. We'll fool around. I'll make it when he's facing right, he'll grow twice as big. All right, to show you what I'm talking about, right? And twice as tall actually. We'll make him twice as tall, right? And when he's facing left, right, he'll just go left. We'll do that too, so we can understand what this is doing, right? Just from an understanding perspective. Let's write the same thing. This dot transform a local scale, right, is equal to new vector 3. Again, you could probably make it with a vector 2 as well. But let's stick with what we've got. Where we go minus 1f. There's the flip, right? And then 1f and then 1f, which we're not flipping on the z-axis. Just the x-axis is changing, right? But we need to add this in as a vector 3. Because we can't directly access the local scale itself. All right, so that's our flip method. We've written it. Now let's go back. If then, right, he's facing right, make sure you flip him right. So he faces right. Make sure you change the state scale back to normal. That's what this is, right? And that's what we're going to put here. So, so flip back to normal, right? That's what this is. Okay, so that's what we want to do with this one. When he's facing right, we want to call the this.flip method one time, right? We also want to do this when he's facing left, but now remember we've changed up our facing, right? So here he's facing right is true. Here is facing right is false. And down here we check to see if he's facing right. And if he is, make him go back to normal. If he's not, flip him the other way around. So just, you know, actually transform across the x-axis. That's what's happening. Okay, so that really should be enough to make us move forward. Let's see if I didn't make any mistakes. So run this thing, and now when I run to the right, he runs to the right. And when I run to the left, he runs to the left, and I got a bit of an error. Let's take a look and see what my error is down here. Right, it says hero animation event has no function name specified, right? So let's take a look at where that's taking us. The animation event, right? And we got a couple of, that's a weird error. I've never seen that error. But, right, the animation event has no function specified, right? Luckily, you know, the great thing about it is that, you know, we have all of our animators and everything else. Here's our animator controller. Let's go back to our animator controller for a second. We can troubleshoot this a little bit because it doesn't tell us a specific place where the hero animation event has no function name specified, right? Here's my hero. And if I was to go into my hero itself or himself, right? I mean, the only animator controller we have is right here. So let's go back into our animator. And if you notice, here's my player animator. And you can see that he's trying to play this event that goes back and forth, right? I am going, I do have a player walk here, and here's my player idle. So there's 2 clips that are made, right? All I'm doing is flipping them across one axis or the other. So it might be just a bit of a glitch. So again, if I move to the right, I'm still getting that error. I'm going to fix that in a second. I move to the left, he still moves this way. How come he's jittery like that? Any idea? Well, what's happening is I'm trying to, as he's playing, he's trying to, it's a bit of a glitch that I've got going on over here, right? This glitch, every time I move, right, something's going on where I flip him, right? Before, when I wasn't flipping him, it wasn't an error anymore because I was specifying that I'm transforming him across the local scale. Let's stop that and go back to my script. And again, all I'm doing is I'm saying that my animation state when I'm moving is 1. So I play my walk clip, right? And when I'm not, I want to flip them, and my facing is false, right? So the regular thing that would normally work. I don't have another animation state right now, right? But all he's doing, all I've done here is I'm checking to see at the bottom which way he's flipping, right? Now here's something. If I was to avoid this flip, and this is where the nature of our problem is coming from, this flip animation, right? Watch, if I just take this flip animation off completely, and I'm just going to, all I'm doing is I'm commenting it out. And again, this is the way I do troubleshooting, right? Try and figure out what's going on. I'm going to go back, and here he is. And if I start running, right, still get the error, right? Still get that error, which is something different. I never had that error before, which means something I've affected with my animator, whether it's my animation, right? Let's go back to my animation, my player walk animation, and I've made it 30. Remember, I changed the samples to 30, right? The samples were originally 12 samples, right? That's what it was before. Remember, I can always go back and redo my frame, right? So let me go back and go back to my animator for a second. So I'm gonna go back to my clips, animator, and right now my cycles for my animation is 12, and this is for my player walk animation. I'm gonna save it and play and see if it still has issues when I move. Yeah, so something I've done with my animation has messed it completely up. Okay, let's do some further troubleshooting. So remember, we're trying to troubleshoot the errors. Let's try and take the animation away to see if that's the issue, right? So we got our animation state, and we got our animator controller, which we have reference to, which is right here. Here's our animator controller right here. And all I'm saying with my animator is set the integer to anim state 1 or anim state 0, right? I remember where we got that information, going back to our animator, our parameter for anim state 0, anim state itself, we set as a default to 0. And when I move from my player idle animation, right, to my player walk animation, I set my anim state to 1 in order for me to get there, right? I've taken away the exit issue, has exit time. I've taken that away. because that's a problem, right? Okay. But there isn't any error that I can kind of discern right from the start. So let's suppose that I don't know what it is. It says animation event has no function name specified. So what does that mean? It's probably something in my dashboard. So let me just check that out. Animation event has no function. Well, it says no function name specified. Here it is. What does that mean? And usually they're pretty good with answering this kind of thing. So let's take a see what it says. It says, if you're animation editor, you must have clicked the icon for add event. It looks like a pencil with a small plus in the bottom right corner and is just to the right of the add key icon. If you have any events in your timeline, they are shown at the top as a small, tall rectangles with a tip at the bottom, pencils. Right. And I bet you any money, by chance, I clicked in there by accident to cause my animation, my actual movement, my walk, to have a problem. Let's fix that. So I know this is where it points to. Oh, damn! Did I just shut myself down? Am I still broadcasting? Yay! Okay. So let's fix this up. So we're going to go back to. I'm going to go back to my player animation and fix it. How? Well, guess what? My player idle and my player jump and my player walk. These are all clips that I've kind of created, right? So here's my player walk clip, right? And this is where the problem lies. I've messed up my player walk clip. So let's get rid of it. So I'm going to kind of delete it. How do I get it back? Huh? How do I get it back? Well, I have in my, I'm losing you guys, but here's in my hero, right? In my hero sprite, I have the walk frames, which is from 1 to 15, right? What I want to do in my scene is I want to pull them back in, right? So here's my walk animation, right? And when I do that, once I pull my walk clip in, right, I get two things. I get a walk, I get an animator controller right away, as well as a walk clip. So let's change these up. So I'm going to get rid of this because I don't care about the animator. But I do care about this walk. I'm going to pull this into clips and rename it. So here's my clips. And I've named it player idle, player jump. Might as well call this player walk. So I know now this is uncorrupted, this clip. Player walk. And now if I go to my animator, right, here's my animator. My player walk specifies none. That's bad. I got to kind of pull my player walk in there. Right, so here's my player walk. Cool. So that should fix it. Now, I'm not changing my rate of speed, so it's going to be pretty slow again. Let's check this out. Let's see if I can still get an error. Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. I got to take away my walk. So I don't need this anymore. All right, so if that's not the issue, then it won't, oh, see the error is gone. Now, it's a little bit too slow. See how slow it is? So to me, that's too slow. So now I can go into my animator. So something I touched in my animation here. I must have clicked something in here that messed it up. I'm not going to do that again. But I am going to go here and change my samples to 30 and save. All right. Now, hopefully that will mess me up. Let's check it out. So this is the only thing I changed, right? So yeah, now I'm good. Let's just check it out and make sure that my samples. Oh wait, I changed the wrong sample. I meant to change my power player walk to 30. Which is the issue, not my player idle. Okay, save that, play, and then walk, and that's good. Now that's a good speed. Now I can impose that. I don't get the error anymore. I don't want to get an error at all ever, because that'll like translate later on into a problem. So that's how I correct my error. Okay, let's go back, and I want to go back to here and uncomment these things. My flip. Now after this, we should have a pretty good motion for my player back and forth. Let's see if this works, right? Back and forth. He's kind of moving this way. He's moving that way. He's pretty good player motion, I would say. Maybe a little bit slow. Take away some of his friction or whatever. These are values I can play with later on. I may end up doing that. A pretty good animation so far. Let's add the jump, okay? And then we'll have a complete player motion. So far, we've added horizontal command, right, over our over our player. And the way we've done that is by getting an input get access, we're doing this horizontal thing, right? So we're saying we're capturing the value of what I'm doing when I press the key. So I press the right key, which is the right arrow or the D key. I get a value of anywhere between 0 and +1. I'm just repeating myself so people just remember this. It's an integer value. Sorry, it's a float value. If I press the left key, which is the A key or the left arrow, I'm going to get a value between 0 and -1. That's what's going to happen, right? So this moving variable is almost like a moving value. That's what it is. And this is probably what I can probably call it to make more sense of it. So I'm going to rename this thing because I want to understand what it means, and I want you to understand what it means. So how do I rename it? I'm going to, of course, I'm going to do this up here in my private instance variables. I'm going to kind of double click on this thing called refactor, rename, and change this from moving to moving value. So my moving value is what I'm going to calculate. So if the moving value is my input get access, again, it's a value between 0 and -1 if I'm going left, and 0 and +1 if I'm going right. And now when I look at it, it has to make sense. So if this moving value is greater than 0, I'm moving to the right. That makes more sense. If this moving value is less than 1 or less than 0, I'm going to the left. Okay, but how do I kind of match up that I'm jumping? I got to kind of detect that I'm jumping. And this is where I can use another input method. It won't be the horizontal or the vertical, because if I do vertical, automatically I get a negative. I can go up with my up key. I can also use spacebar if I want to as well. We have to decide how I want to do that. And for now, what I want to do is I want to only look at the up key. I want to look at one key, the up key. How do I do that? There's a couple ways to do this, by the way, but let's just do it this way because it kind of goes along with what we've been doing so far. So again, after this piece, and before we do this rigid body add force, before we add the force to the player, we want to check to see if he's jumping. So here's where we're going to do it here. So here we're going to say check if player is jumping. Okay, and here, up here, we're going to say check if player is moving. Right? That's what we're doing here. So we say check if player is moving. I'm just annotating it for you so you see, I'm just documenting it so you see what's going on here. Here I'm going to check if player is jumping, and how I'm going to do that, I'm going to say if input.getKey this time, my get key, and I'm looking for the up key, all right, my up key. If my up key or, right, input.getKey, we're going to say, here's a special key code we can use, keycode.w, right? We can use both ways. That's both ways we can do it. If that's true, one of the two, if it's the up key, or I think I've got enough. Do I got enough braces in there? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see. If that's true, right? I don't. If this is true, if the input.getKey is pressed, the up, that's the up arrow, or input.getKey, the W key is pressed, so the W or the up button, but not I don't care about the down button at all. I'm not even looking for it. I'm not even polling for it. If that's true, then I want to jump, right? So let's do this. Let's just make him go, right? So if that's true, then player is jumping. That's what's happening. Here's my player is jumping, and if that's true, right? I need to change my absolute velocity y, just like we did our x, so that, and we have to check it to see if it's less than the maximum velocity y. So we're going to say one of these. If absolute velocity y is less than, and this is this dot underscore velocity range, or sorry, velocity range dot v max, right? So we want to check to see if the velocity is the maximum velocity, right? Again, is if it's less than this, right? And I'm going to go back to this in a second to fix it. Just give me 1 sec. Because I know there's an issue already, right? But it's okay. Then, if that's true, then what we're going to say is force y, because we have a force, right, is equal to this dot jump. Because we set this dot jump at, I believe, 500 at the beginning, right? This dot jump 500 right up here. So we're going to set this as to a jump. So we're actually changing my force y attribute to jump. Okay? So this is good, but there's some flaws here. And let's take a look and see what the flaws are if we implement this little routine here. So all we're doing is we're checking to see if the up or the W key is pressed. And when we press the up or W key, is going to jump. See if that works. And yo, okay, and look what's happening. Hey, I can even float in midair, right? Let's just take a look, right? I can almost, it's almost like I have a jetpack, right? So I can kind of jump and double jump, and I keep jumping forever. Let's take a look at that hero value here. So if I click on the hero, and if I just keep pressing jump, I'm going to keep going to infinity if I just keep pressing. And if I let go, he's going to just fall down really, really fast, right? So I can kind of jump and jump again and jump as many times as I want. So I got to have a way of checking to see if I'm grounded. Now, there's some really complicated stuff we can use to see if I'm grounded. And I can do that by using something called line casting, right? And that's what the, it's like a ray cast. What I'm doing is I'm casting a line out in front of myself, right? From the player to the ground in front of me, right? And I can check to see if I'm touching the ground. Or I can check to see if I'm constantly colliding with my ground. Okay, how do I do that? There's another collision I can use. It's called on collision stay 2D, right? So I can check to see if I'm on collision stay 2D, if it's true, right? And if I'm colliding with the platform, right, then I'm grounded. If I'm not colliding with the platform, I'm not grounded. And if I'm not grounded, I can't jump. It's very simple, right? So let's do that. So first, let me stop debugging. I need to have a way of checking to see if I'm grounded or not. So I'm going to go back to create an isGrounded Boolean, which is going to be right next to isFacingRight. So private Boolean isGrounded. And right now, by default, we set isFacingRight to true. I'm also going to say by default, you know, he's grounded. So he can, when he lands, he's going to be able to jump for the first time. This is kind of dangerous, right? Because that means that when he's falling for the first scene, I could probably press the button and make him jump, right? But we'll check that out. And by the way, I'm still going to hold true to what I said. I'm going to make it so when he flips his directions, I'm going to show you how I can make him change size and do all kinds of weird stuff. All right, but let's take a look. So if I'm going to check to see if he's grounded. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I need to make that check. So the only way I can jump is if the player is grounded. So let's go back to the little jump routine. Okay, so here's his little, to check to see if my player is jumping, right? So I'm going to check to see, so before I can press the button, but I won't allow him to jump unless he's grounded, all right? So how do I do that? So first I want to say, check, this is my little pseudocode, check if the player is grounded, right? Well, that means I got to put an if statement in there. If I do any checks, I'm doing conditionals, right? So I'm going to say if this dot underscore is grounded, if that's true, right? Let me just make a little if statement in there. Well, then I can player is jumping, right? So I kind of cut out there and put this here, right? Just refactor this with he's grounded. Check to see if he's grounded. If it's true, then he can jump. Otherwise, he can't. Right now, it's true, right? What if he actually is jumping? So if he's jumping, well, guess what? Then he's not grounded anymore. So I'm going to have to change this when he's jumping to this is grounded is equal to false. That means in this particular way, let's just check this out. He'll be able to jump once. As soon as he jumps once, he won't be able to jump again. Let's see if that's line here. So first he's grounded for sure. We can jump. Once he jumps the first time, he's not grounded anymore. All right, let's check this out. So go here, I jump, and now I can't jump again. And actually, the jump was really poor. Take a look at that. Right? So jump, and then that was it. He couldn't jump much at all, right? That was like his jumping is minimal. Let's try that again. Whoop, right? So we're going to talk about how to fix that. Velocity range is a funny thing too. Kind of, our Vmax is like 1,000, right? So you should be able to jump up at least 1,000. But what's happening is he's also being slowed down by other factors. Now I'm not doing his animation just yet. All I'm doing is checking to see that can he jump if he's grounded. So that's one thing. So he jumps, he's grounded, but you know, as soon as I press that button, he's not grounded anymore, so he can't jump. So any force that's translated to the player is gone. Okay? So he doesn't get a bit of force. He only gets a second of force, and then he's done. Right? So I may have to put more force to him for him to jump a little bit more. That's number one. Two, he can never jump again. He needs some kind of routine, some kind of check to see if he's colliding with the platform. But that means I need to create some kind of way of checking to see if this is a platform. Right now, I just named this platform, but who cares? I need to tag it as a platform. So let's create a new tag. I'm going to go here, create a new tag. We're going to call this thing platform. Cool. And then I'm going to go back to platform and tag it as a platform. So now I can check to see if he's colliding with the platform. If he's always colliding with the platform, then he's grounded, right? And that means he can jump. If he's not colliding with the platform, he can't jump because he's in the air. Right? All right, so let's check this out. So let's go back to the code here. And I want to create another collider like this one. So not just colliding with the coin for the player, but I'm colliding with the platform. Okay, let's just try this out. So I'm going to go. Again, this could be part of the player collider script. All right, but let's do it here for now. So void on collision stay 2D. That's the actual built-in function, right? Then I want to do a collision 2D, and I call this other collider again. This time I'm going to do the same thing I've done here. Copy and paste this one to here, but instead of comparing it with the coin, I'm comparing it with a platform. And instead of playing a sound, I want to say that this is grounded is equal to true. When I'm colliding, if I'm staying, if I'm constantly, what collision is constantly colliding with an object? If I'm colliding with an object for a length of time, which means that this collider will fire, right? It will trigger the collider if I'm colliding with it for a while. So if I'm standing on the platform, the collision stay, collider will trigger, right? And this is where I can change my is grounded to true when I'm colliding with a platform. Let's try this out. So I'm falling, and now I can jump, right? Not a great jump, right? Take a look, right? So not a really great jump, but he can jump. And he can jump one way, and he can jump the other way. The thing is, when I'm running and jumping, I don't have the proper jumping. If I jump straight up, I don't have any kind of jumping animation. So I gotta add that in. The other thing is, he's not jumping very high. So how do I fix that with not killing the hero's jump? Right. So I'll go back to the jump. Notice that his jump is 500. I can make it go a little higher. Let's add 600 as a value. Let's try this now. So maybe 600 is enough. Maybe 600 is too much, right? So when I jump the second time, I get enough force in me that I can, get onto the platform. Right? So I have to kind of jump and then jump again, right? Why? Because the way I've done my is grounded method. Right? So maybe that's a little bit too high, right? But let's leave it as is for now. So my jumping works. Again, all I've done is I'm going to change my value from 500 here to 600. Give me a little bit more force. Again, you have to understand that 600 looks like a lot, but I'm adding 600, but I'm subtracting 200 every frame, right, from his gravity, right? So there's gravity pulling him down, and I'm pushing him up with force going up. So he's trying to exceed gravity and jump over himself. Okay, cool. So I've got my player jumping going on. Let's add a sound for the player jumping. Well, that means that I need another audio source that I don't have right now, right? I need a jump sound audio source. So when he's jumping, I want to add my audio. Let's add that in first. Okay, so let's go back to my audio sources, which is my sounds. And remember how I did it last time? I kind of took the jump or the coin, and I just dragged it over my component like this until I get my plus. Right? Let's try that again. That didn't work. Okay, well, let's add an audio source by hand. So I'll say audio source. And, well, that's not a reverb zone. It's neat. Neat, but I didn't want that one. I'll add another audio source. There it is. And what I want to do here is I want to drag my jump audio into that clip right here. There we go. Now, I don't want it to play on awake. I want it to play when I jump with the player. Up a little bit, because I want to kind of, what I'd like to do is kind of, that's not what I wanted. One more time. Audio source. Once I've got my audio source, I kind of put my jump on it, sorry. And once I put my jump on it, I don't want it to play on awake, but what I want to do is move it up. That's what I want to do, not remove it. Move it up. I want to kind of pair them together so they're next to each other. All right, well, we have audio sources already kind of defined in our player script, right? So here's our player script. And we have our audio source for our coin sound. I know that my audio source for my jump sound is next. So make that, put that in. So we say private audio source. And I'm going to go jump sound. That's what it is. And what is that? Well, my audio source, my jump sound, is actually equal to this dot audio sources 1. Right, so my second audio source, basically. Okay, cool. Now, when I jump, every time I jump successfully, I want to play that jump sound. And here's my player's jumping algorithm. And in here, I want to say, well, as soon as I jump, I want to play my sound. So let's do that. So I'm going to say this dot jump sound dot play. Let's check it out. Let's test this thing, make sure it works. So I'm going to jump. The player is here, and then, whoop. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And if I jump, double jump, right? If I kind of do that, so that kind of works. And if I kind of do one more, I can double jump up. So that's kind of good. So I've got my mechanic going on. I can move my guy around. He's got his little idle animation, but I don't have a jump animation. How do I do that, right? Well, let's go back to my Animator Controller. So if I go to my Animator Controller, oops. Right now I only have a couple of states. I have my player idle state and I have my player walk state. And what I want to do is create a player jump state. So let's move it aside a little bit and pull in my clip from my player jump. So I'm going to go to clips and go to player jump and pull it in. Ooh, there's my player jump clip. Okay, so here's my player jump. So here's my question for you guys. And I know I've been talking a lot. I'm going to take a break in a second. Can I go from a player to a player jump? Is that a good state change? Can I do that? What do you think, Vanessa? What do you think? Can I go from a player idle to a player jump? 2 different states. Is that possible? She's not paying attention. Yes, the answer is yes. Can I go from a player jump state back to a player idle state? Can I jump up and then stop jumping and go back to idle? I think this answer. So I could do this connection here. Let's do it because it makes sense for our players. Let's do that. So we'll say I'm going to click on the player idle, make a transition, and then move my arrow to the player jump. Good, I can do that. I can also make a transition from my player jump back down. So I'm going to go hit my player jump, right click, make a transition all the way back to my player idle. Okay, those are good. Now I need to have some kind of variable change. Remember we did this animation state variable, and right now the animation state for player idle is 0. My animation state variable for player walk is 1. Let's make player jumping 2. So when I jump, then I'll move this down. When I jump, my player my condition is that my anim state is equal to, the only way it's going to jump is if my anim state is equal to 2. Okay. I don't care about has exit time. I don't want to have that exit time. I want to unclick that again. Now when I go back, the only way I can go back is if my anim state is equal to 0. right? So if my animate equals 0, I'm going to go back to this. Otherwise, I'm going to go up to here. Here's a question. Can I go from jumping right back to running? Because maybe I'll land on the platform up or down, right? And can I go right into running? And I think the answer is yes. I could probably do that, right? So that means I can go from running to my player jump, or from my player jump back to running. So I got to connect these two up as well. So let's do that. So we make a transition back to walking, and I make my player walk. I make a transition back to player jump, so I can jump from walking, right? Which means, and I'm just going to connect these to make sense. From player walk, in order for me to get a jump, I need to make my animation state equal to 2, right? This is kind of very simple, right? And from this, from player jump back to player walk, I got to change my animation state equal to 1. Because 1 represents player walk in our game, 2 is player jump, 0 is player idle. So I've got them all tied up now. One thing I need to do is unmark this for each of these steps. Otherwise, it'll only wait. It'll do the animation, and then when it's done the animation, it'll play the new one. We don't want that. We want to start playing the animation, and when we move to the other one, it'll seamlessly transition from one animation state to the next. All right? Otherwise, it'll stop. There we go. So that's all of them. I'm just going to check. Oh, that's bad. That's where we're getting that weird effect. Eh? Look at that. Oh, well, yeah, this is good. I'm going to take that off. Got to make sure each of these check boxes are checked to make sure they're unchecked. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Let's check this out, man. So I got to go back into my monodevelop here, and when I'm jumping, I've got to change the animation state by accessing the animator and setting the. I got to set the animator set anim state. I got to set it to 2 if I'm jumping, and I got to do that, right? I got to do that if I know I'm moving. I set the animation state to 1. If I know I'm jumping, right, when I'm grounded, I know I'm jumping, I'm going to set the animation state to 2. So let's do this. So again, the safe thing would be to put it in this if statement, but I'm going to put it outside for now. So I'm going to say this.animator, which is accessing the animator controller that's in my player, right? I'm going to use the setInteger method of the property that I've defined in my animator controller, which is called animState. You can call this whatever you want, right? To 2, which now means that go to the second animation state, which is jumping. That's what it means. Okay. Let's check this out and see if this all this craziness, this insanity works, right? I'll press play. And now when I jump, hey, there's my animation, right? See? See, my little animation. He's going to step over. Ooh, hello. And even when I run, he's going to have a little animation that I can run and get back into running. Right? Make sense? So my animation works. My player animation, my whole my state machine is going where I can play between my player idle, player walk, player jump. That kind of finishes off my player pretty much in a nutshell. I mean, he's got motion, he's got detection. I can collide with a coin, right? Good. I can make him into a prefab, right? So that means I can add my player back in. I can save him. I can change him. But let's just, for the sake of checking to see what my stuff does, I want to see what happens when, you know, he flips. When he flips to the left, we'll do it to the left. Not only does he flip scale, like he actually flips over to the left, so he changes on he flips on the x-axis. But I'm also going to make him twice as tall. Let's do that, just to make it weird, right? So I can show you what I'm talking about here. So this is the x scale. This is the y scale. Let's see, or maybe twice as fat. I don't know. Let's see what happens. Okay, I'm going to go back to play him and see what happens. So when he's going right, he's no problem. When he moves this way, oh man, he gets twice as tall. When he moves back down, he goes back to normal. Moves back up, he's like twice as tall, right? Yeah. This looks okay, but this, that's kind of weird. Okay. So you see, I did that by just changing one variable, one aspect, which is, if I go back to monodevelop, is right here. I just changed the y on the y-axis. I flipped them to 2. I've changed that y scale to 2. How about if I want to make him flip upside down, right? So -2, I'll put a minus in here as well, and make it -1. So now he's going to flip upside down. Now he's still going to be able to walk because, you know, typically I haven't checked to see what part of him is walking. So I move to the left, now he's upside down. Whoa, so he now moves upside down, right? Move to the right, then move to the left, he's going to be crawling on his back, right? So it's totally possible to change those values, and that's what those things do. This is a good way of understanding what's happening here, all right? To change some of these value stuff. All right, so let's take a short break. I'm going to upload it on GitHub so you guys have all my changes. You got the player controller, but before we do that, I need to make one more change, which is I want to take my hero and make him into a prefab. Why? Because now I can pass this hero on to another game, right? He's ready to go. He's got all his scripts ready to go. Everything's ready. He's got his animation states. He's got his graphics. He's got his material, my physics material built in. Everything's there. So it's a good chance to do that kind of stuff. I've done a little bit of testing. I'm good. So I'm going to take this hero guy and pull him into prefabs. Sorry? For levels, for other things. Like I want him to be, I don't want to recreate my hero again and again, right? So that's why I want to pull him into my prefab. I'm going to leave my hero in there right now because even though he's a prefab, I'm not going to generate my hero. I'm going to put him as part of the hierarchy from the very beginning. Okay, cool. So let's take a short break. I'm going to save everything. I'm going to save my scene, and I'm going to save my project. And then when we come back, I'm going to get into the next piece, which is making the enemy.